Hello my soul family, welcome to my School of Light. My name is Christie Ramirez and I am a soul coach, a motivational speaker, spiritual influencer, and a teacher here at the school. Today we are here gathered for the Spiritual Book Club, and we currently is the second gathering that we are reading Dante's Divine Comedy. We are going to finish the first part of the book, which is Inferno. Next class we're going to get started with Purgatorio, and then that's about 2 classes, and then we're going to finish off Paradiso in 2 more classes. This is a gathering where we're really flying through this book and yet still discussing and interpreting it canto verse by verse. It is very powerful. We have already, made a lot of discoveries, some revelations as well about the deeper meaning behind this poetry and what Dante was writing about, his vision about earth and paradise, and what our soul goes through also in the afterlife, and how our actions in our day-to-day life will reflect that and will determine our eternal life as a soul being, right? We are all spirit within, and this is a very powerful book that is going to enhance your potential in your spiritual gifts, and it's also going to help you to evolve on your soul journey. All the books that I choose to discuss and teach with at the Spiritual Book Club are for the spiritual journey. It is very powerful, and it's amazing how much already we have learned in just one gathering. The first gathering was like 2 to 3 hours long because of course I wanted to get a lot read in before we gathered here about a month later for the second portion of Inferno, and we're going to be here for another about 2 hours. And we're going to finish it, and their next class is going to be exciting. So definitely make sure that if you want access to all my Spiritual Book Club gatherings, my classes that I also teach exclusively only here at the School of Light, make sure that you become a member. You can go to christieramirez.com/school. So many classes that I have already taught as well. Those videos are forever there in your membership. I also have a Spanish membership where I do some courses in Spanish, another curriculum in Spanish, and then also for kids, which is another separate curriculum for children. Everybody can benefit. You can just get one membership for your whole family and just experience this wonderful greatness and inspiration and enlightenment that the School of Light will help you to reach, and it will provide for you. So I'm gonna get started, and I hope to see you all here this year. And let's just sip some coffee here, grab your cup of coffee before you watch my videos. And really, and most importantly, it's important to listen to these videos in a quiet space. These are not videos that you can just listen to when you're doing something else or preoccupied, because this requires full attention. This is brain work that we do here, and it's also esoteric thinking, philosophical higher mind activation. And all of this requires your full attention. So I challenge you to come and join me. And every time that I show up here for my School of Light, I always am grateful that I did, because it was just such an experience and such an influx of knowledge and wisdom that is just priceless. So I'm going to get started, and I'll see you all here. You can join again at christieramirez.com/school. Namaste. Alright, my school members, welcome to the Spiritual Book Club. Today we're going to continue with our second gathering for Dante's Divine Comedy. We're going to start and pick up today off the Canto 16. We did 15 cantos in the first gathering, which did take us 3 hours. That's just because we went really deep. That's about 44 pages that we went through. These are pretty small letters, and we're not rushing through the reading. That's not what this is about. This is definitely not just about, skimming through this book or just rush reading, right? Because I know that a lot of us, or not everyone, but like when you are reading on your own, you're tempted to just kind of read fast, right? Or skim through it, especially if you don't understand. This is very ancient writing here. This is writing that as modern beings, and us modern beings that have been to school and learned the modern English literature It's very different when you're reading an ancient literature. Now, some of you might have read this in school. I didn't per se. I wish I would have, because this was such a not only very philosophical book, but it's also a very spiritual book, and there's a lot to learn in here. And so that's why I'm bringing it into the spiritual book club at my School of Light. And I just want to make a note to all of you, before you start any of my books in my spiritual book club, that this is reading very slow. Not too slow that it gets boring, but just slow enough that we understand, and yet we're still progressing, right? And we always make it exciting. This is also how we also make it more exciting, because if you were to read this book alone, I don't think that a lot of us would be very excited, or maybe you would, but because it's just so ancient and it requires deeper understanding, and if you don't understand what you're reading, you might get tempted to not like it. Okay, that's also the other purpose behind me bringing this book into the spiritual book club, is to break it down and also see how this applies to our life. Okay, so it's a lot more to this than just the words that we see on this page. Okay, so we're gonna get started with Inferno, Canto 16. We're in the midst of his journey into the circles of hell. There are 9 circles of hell. It's very complicated down there, because it's meant to get complicated, right? The more complicated you live your life on earth, the more drama you bring in. That's what you're going to experience in the afterlife. That's the torment of stress that you're going to experience in the afterlife. And there's so many different categories, because there's just so many different levels of evil that Dante wanted to portray. And when it comes to just being a heavenly angel and of heavenly light, it's not complicated at all, right? You're either pure or not. And that's what also Dante wanted to point out, I feel, as the bigger picture and concept behind why he made Inferno so complicated. Because it could be just one minute impure thing in your heart that could send you down there, but can also take you away from being pure itself, right? It's like you taint one aspect of your pure heart and you're not pure anymore. It's almost like this concept of pure breed. It really is just get down to that a little bit, right? Because in order to really, really be of light, there can be no speck of evil within you at all. This means no sin whatsoever, no envy, no anger, no violence, no any of the other sins, right? No stealing, etc. No manipulation. Everything needs to be pure in order for you to really rise into paradiso. And that's what we can learn into how we're living our day-to-day life, right? It's very powerful. So make sure that, as we're reading this book as well, it's an inspiration and motivation for any of you out there to really do the healing work, the cleansing and the purging that is required of anything that is impure in your heart, so that you can start to ascend on your soul journey. Canto 16, let's get started. And get comfy. I was already in a place where the booming of the water that fell into the next circle sounded like a beehive's humming, when 3 shades running together left a crowd that passed under the sharp burning rain. So it's very gloomy, it's very rainy. They came towards us, and each one cried, "Wait, you who seem to us by your clothes to be someone from our perverse city." Now it's interesting that this bee calls this city perverse, because it's perverse, it's vulgar, it's dirty, it's crass, it's anything but light, right? It's anything but good. So it's a perverse city that they are touring right now down in hell. Below the earth as well is another thing, right? Ah me, what ancient and recent wounds I saw on their limbs, scorched there by the flames. It saddens me now when I remember it. My teacher listened to their cries, turned his face towards me, and said, "Wait now, courtesy is owed them, and if they were not this fire that the place's nature rains down, I would say that you were more hasty than they are." As we rested, they started their former laments again, and when they reached us, all 3 of them formed themselves into a circle, wheeling around as do champion wrestlers, naked and oiled, looking for a hold or an advantage before they grasp and attack one another, each directed his face at me so that his neck turned continuously in an opposite direction to his feet. And then one of them began, "If the misery of this sinful place and our scorched, stained look renders us and our prayers contemptible, let our fame influence your mind to tell us who you are that move your living feet safely through hell. He in whose footsteps you see me tread, all peeled and naked as he is, was greater in degree than you would think. His name is Guido Guerra, grandson of the good lady Gualdrada, and in his life he achieved much in counsel. And with his sword, the other that treads the sand behind me is Tegiano Aldobrandi, whose words should have been listened to in the world. And I, placed with them in torment, am Jacopo Rusticucci, and certainly my fierce wife injured me more than anything else." So they're conversing with the people there. If I had been sheltered from the fire, which again, the fire can represent the hell, the sin, the temptation, the devil on his shoulder, the demons within, right? I would have dropped down among them below, and I believe my teacher would have allowed it. But as I would have been burned and baked myself, my fear overcame the goodwill that made me eager to embrace them. Embrace the fears and the ego talking. Then I began, "Your condition stirred sadness, not contempt, in me so deeply that it will not soon be gone. When my guide spoke words to me by which I understood, such men as yourselves might be approaching. I am of your city, and I have always heard and repeated your names and your deeds with affection. I leave the gall behind and go towards the sweet fruits promised me by my truthful guide. But first I must go downwards to the center." And he then replied, "That your soul may long inhabit your body, and your fame shine after you, tell us if courtesy and courage still live in our city as they used to, or if they have quite forsaken it. Guglielmo Borsieri, who has been in pain with us a little while, and goes along there with our companions, torments us greatly with what he says. New men and sudden wealth have created pride and excess in you, Florence, so that you already weep for it." I cried with lifted face, and the three who took this for an answer gazed at one another as one gazes at the truth. They replied together, "Happy are you if, by speaking according to your will, it costs so little for you to satisfy others. So if you escape these gloomy spaces and turn and see the beauty of the stars again, when you will be glad to say, 'I was,' see that you tell people of us." Then they broke up their circle, and as they ran, their swift legs seemed wings. A man could have not been said as quickly as their vanishing took, at which my master was pleased to depart. I followed him. So we had gone only a little way when the sound of the water came so near us that if we had been speaking, we would hardly have heard each other. And this is Dante and Virgil talking together, right? And journeying together. Like that river, the first that takes its own course to the eastern seaboard, south of Monteveso, where the Po rises on the left flank of the Apennines, and is called Aquacera above, before it falls to its lower bed and loses its name to become the Monton at Forlì, which, plunging through a fall, echoes from the mountain above San Benedetto, where there should be a refuge for 1,000, so down from a steep bank, we found that tainted water re-echoing, so much so that in a short while it would have dazed our hearing. I had a cord tied around me, and with it I had once thought to catch the leopard with the spotted skin, the one that we read about in Canto 2 or 3, right? After I had completely unwounded for myself, as my guide commanded, I held it out to him, gathered up and coiled. And then he turned towards the right and threw the end of it away from the edge a little down into the steep gulf. And I said to myself, surely something strange will follow this new sign of our intentions, which my master tracks with his eyes as it falls. Ah, how careful men should be with those who not only see our actions, but with their understanding see into our thoughts. He said to me, that which I expect will soon ascend, and the object of your speculations will soon be apparent to your sight. A man should always be kept quiet, should always keep quiet as far as he can when facing a truth that seems like a lie, since he incurs reproach, though he is blameless. But I cannot be silent here, and reader, I swear to you by the words of this comedy, that they may not fail to find lasting favor, that I saw a shape marvelous to every unshaken heart come swimming upwards through the dense dark air, just as a man rises who has gone down some time to free an anchor caught on a rock or something else hidden in the water, who spreads his arms out and draws up his feet. That's a powerful couple lines of this poetry right here to finish Canto 16. The image that I'm getting here is like the dark night of the soul, someone who's drowning in life, someone who's sinking from their own doings, from their own wrongdoings, from their own sins. And it's almost like they're tied down with an anchor to the ocean level bottom, and they just can't get up. They're pleading for help with their arms up, and they're just drowning and gasping for air, right? And this is the darkness that all of these souls find themselves in, this circle of hell. That's how deep we're getting, and it only gets deeper till they eventually, find Satan at the very bottom. But that's how dark they lived their life, and that's what they deserved in the afterlife. And it almost reminds me that, this dark night of the soul that these souls might have been living through and didn't get a chance to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they didn't have a chance to make their amends right, or make their wrongs right and make their amends. They didn't have a time to go through purgatorio in this earth, right? And plead forgiveness to God, repentment, atonement, right? Which is all what A Course in Miracles teaches. Another book that we read every winter at the School of Light. This winter we will definitely be reading it, and that's a very powerful book that is, very related to Christianity, because again, this is a Christian poet that wrote this book, and he is writing from that standpoint, from that belief system, right? And even though this is not necessarily about Christianity, it's more about spirituality and the way that you live your life, a way of living. That's also what A Course in Miracles teaches us, which are Jesus' teachings, and how we can live a better life through our higher self, through love, through choosing love over fear, over our ego. And this is where your ego gets you to the deepest of lowest in the circles of hell, Inferno, right? So let's continue now with Canto 17.